All right. I just had to make this because, as someone who wants to get into cycling, one of the first things that struck me was cycling is a really expensive hobby. And it seems kind of elitist, to be honest, because anybody should be able to cycle around. Anybody should have the access to a nice road bike so that they can take it out on a weekend and ride around, especially in a city like London that's so beautiful with all the parks. But it's really hard to do that. And I wanted to make this video because, as someone who lived as a student for the last year and a half, and even now, I'm not the richest man in London. I can't afford to buy like really nice bikes that I would love to. But how have I managed to navigate my way around this and talk a little bit about why are road bikes so freaking expensive? But at the same time, what can you do about it, and how can you make smart choices and still enjoy a road bike if you wanted to? So, first and foremost, why are road bikes so freaking expensive? There's no good answer, to be honest, because if you really dig into the cost of materials, if you really dig into everything, you usually, if you were to Google it or look on YouTube videos, you'll get answers such as, oh, it's carbon fiber, the tires are really expensive, the shifters are really expensive as well. And it just adding all those different components and making them really durable and special just adds on to the cost. But if you actually look at the cost of manufacturing, it's not that much. What it really is there's a bit of crony capitalism at play, to be very honest. There aren't a lot of manufacturers. There is a lot of demand, but there is very limited supply. There's just maybe a couple of handful of manufacturers in the world that are making bikes like this, right? And so because of the brand that they have, they're able to command higher prices. Unjustified prices, I would even say. In fact, I watched a video in preparation for this by a guy called Chris Dunn, and I'll link it in the description below. And he goes through a bunch of different models and he talks about just how crazy expensive they are. I think he reviewed a couple of models that have really increased in price and gone up 15, 20, $30,000. And this guy lives in New Zealand and amazingly expensive kind of bikes he was looking at. And the crazy thing is that his hypothesis was that all of this started even increasing more during COVID because more and more people started cycling, more and more people were indoors, so they wanted the ability to maybe go out for a ride. And because of the increase in demand at that point, the manufacturers increased prices, and the prices haven't gone down afterwards, despite the fact that maybe demand might have reduced, despite the fact that inflation has increased so much and stuff like that. But yeah, it just seems crazy to me why road bikes are so expensive. So, digging into that a little bit though, what are some things you should know, right? What are some obvious differences between cheap and expensive road bikes? Well, first and foremost is the weight. Expensive road bikes, I would say, are made of carbon fiber. That's the gold standard, and that's the lightest bike that you have. Or if it's slightly mid-tier, then maybe it might be made of titanium. So generally, these bikes weigh about 10 kilos less on average, and are very equipped so that when you ride them on the road, they're well equipped to absorb the vibrations off the ground. I'm looking at my article, by the way. That's why I keep looking down. I have written an article on this on my blog post. I just want to make sure that I don't miss anything. So the design of these bikes is heavily dependent on aerodynamics, and that's why they're lightweight, right? So cheaper road bikes are generally made of steel or aluminum, and that's a good differentiator. So they'll be heavier from the more expensive bikes by about 10 to 15 kgs. And so it doesn't really make that big a difference, to be honest, if you're just starting out as a road biker. But if you've been cycling for a couple of years and you're really into it, you probably would like to upgrade. And the second bike that you buy would be one of those titanium or carbon fiber road bikes. Then that's basically the frame, right? That's made of carbon fiber or titanium or whatever else, or aluminum. But then the second big differentiator is the choice of components. So components really matter, right? So like quality of your brakes, the quality of your, let me turn the camera a little bit, the quality of your chain set, the quality of your gears. All of that matters because, well, it's firstly a safety thing. Common example is that some of the cheaper road bikes. This is a cheap road bike, by the way. This isn't a very expensive one. This is my friend had this bike for I think the last maybe 10 years or so, and he wanted to get rid of it, so I took it from him. And this is a nice little commuter bike for me. But you will notice that these V-shaped brakes that this bike has, these are called caliper brakes. So typically speaking, the cheaper bikes tend to have caliper brakes. And the more expensive bikes will have like brakes, which basically is these that you have right at the top where the brakes are attached. So there's hydraulic liquid fluid in these tubes that attach to the brake that runs down to the wheels. And so what that does is it will brake using liquid, using the viscosity of the liquid. And that's pretty efficient. That also has its drawbacks, especially in really cold weather, but that's a separate video. The other type of brakes that come on really expensive bikes is a disc brake. And that's supposed to be the gold standard. It's more efficient. It just has a better braking capacity and a better braking performance in different weather conditions. And what that typically looks like is that you could think of it as a round disc right here and right here. And the brake lever, once you press it, it would just stop from right here. And so it's supposed to be much more efficient, but also it's a bit more expensive. So yeah, the second obvious difference of a expensive and a slightly cheaper road bike, and then gears. These also make a big difference. So typically some of the cheaper road bikes have a 3 into 7 gear set configuration. So you get 21 gears, but you'll have three different chain sets. So this is the chain set right here, right? Chain ring. So my bike has two chain rings. This is the first one and this is the second one. The road bikes have three different chain rings. So one, two, and then there'll be an even smaller one. And then this is the gear set right here. So because you switch between the different chain rings and the different gears here, you're able to get different combinations of gears. So some of the cheaper ones have three here and then seven gears at the back. So you get 21 different combinations. And that's generally not as efficient as having a 1 into 12 configuration. So you might have a single chain ring or maybe even a double chain ring like this one and slightly higher number of gears at the back. That's supposed to be more efficient. And so that is also a differentiator on what's like a cheaper road bike versus a more expensive road bike. Yeah, the lower end, your road bikes for an average person like you and I, maybe like $2,000. That's roughly the range we're looking at for buying a road bike. $3,000 maybe if you're really looking to start off on a nicer one. And like the ceiling is really high, by the way. So like it could go up to 5,000, 6,000 if you really want a really nice bike. The average like pro bikes are in the range of $15,000, $20,000 upwards, I believe, based off the research I did. So yeah, sky's the limit when it comes to like really high-end bikes. But I think like people would be able to find a nice road bike, a new road bike, for less than $5,000. Then if you're like me and you're just starting out and you're not really fussed about how sexy the bike looks, get a hand-me-down, get a second-hand bike. These kind of bikes, if they're maintained well, can last up to like 20, 30 years even. Like the only things that have wear and tear are the components, right? The brakes, the chains. So you just keep changing that. But the basic structure of the bike, as long as you maintain it well, nothing really happens to it. So yeah, about that. And that's it for today. But let me know if there are any more questions. I'd be very happy to answer your questions. And this is all Bicycle Rider. Have a nice one.